The ultimate content creation camera contest begins! The Sony A7 III versus the Panasonic GH5. My two favorite cameras locked into a never-ending struggle. The A7 III is filming this right now. What's up everyone, I'm the Everyday Dad, and if I can figure it out, you can figure it out. First off, I want to say that these two cameras are my favorite cameras ever made. Seriously, each of them excels at their little niche that they overshadow everything else on the market today. And if you can get both, I highly recommend it. They are great. But for those that need to pick one or the other, and I should probably just pick one too, because I can't. Which works best as an online content creation camera, or as I call it, the Triple C, the best. Before we get into my opinions on both, let's cover the basic specs of both cameras in case this is your first time you're seeing them. If you watch my channel, it's not, but if this is your first my video, this is for you. The GH5 is a Micro Four Thirds mirrorless camera from Panasonic that is a borderline professional video camera, and in some cases, an actual professional video camera. The A7 III is a full-frame mirrorless camera from Sony that, for the price, might be the best value in the camera world today. I mean, it's also good. Both of these cameras are considered hybrids, which means they can do both photo and video. Now, for me personally, I believe the Sony is more 1/3 video, 2/3 photo, and the GH5 is more 2/3 video and 1/3 photo, but honestly, they are both great in either arena. The GH5 can record in up to 4K 60 frames per second forever. Seriously, you keep feeding it power and memory and it will just keep recording and it won't overheat. Not only that, but it can record in a huge amount of formats, including some pro level, all-eye, 4K 20 frames per second, cinema 4K that you will not find on another camera at this price point. I mean, you will not. The A7 III can record in 4K 30 frames per second, but it does so in a less intense codec, which if you do a lot of post-processing could be an issue. I take all of my footage straight out of camera, so both of these work really well for me. Whew. Okay, now we're gonna do what I'm gonna call just like a real world outside video test, just kind of seeing the two comparisons of both of these cameras. This is the Sony A7 III. This is the Panasonic GH5. You can see both of them we can kind of see on each other. So, the important part, or we can kind of see right now, like, what do you need to get the camera to work properly? We can see here, the A7 III needs all of this stuff to work. It needs a monitor, it needs a cage, it needs all of these extra things to work because you can't normally see what's going on with it. However, the GH5, I gotta review this later. It's probably having some difficulties with autofocus. We'll have different depths of field. I mean, yeah, it's not totally fair because this is a prime lens, this is a zoom lens, but they're both set to f4. They're both set to f4 and 200 ISO right now. So yes, you're gonna get more of a shallow depth of field on the A7 III than you are on the GH5, but look, the GH5 has the audio because I like how the audio sounds in it a little bit better. I think the preamps are way better than the preamps that are on the A7 III. But you can kind of just see how the focus works. You can kind of just see how the focus works and how the video works, like when you're actually out and about. The GH5 has the flip screen. I can monitor my audio straight from here. I know what my audio sounds like because I can see it. On the other hand, I just know that the A7 III is gonna work and it's gonna look great. I do need some extra pieces for that, and if you don't have the extra pieces, it becomes harder. So this is the frustrating thing about cameras. No matter who you are, this is the frustrating thing. There is no perfect camera. We all wish there was a perfect camera, but there is not a single camera out there that does everything an online content creator wants. You either get good autofocus, an incredible depth of field, or you get awesome audio and the flip out screen, amazing stabilization. It's like if they could just come together, it would be perfect. Okay, let's see. Autofocus again. Good. Autofocus again. We'll see. All right, back inside because I'm being destroyed by mosquitoes right now. See you in a second. Both do have in-body image stabilization, however, not all stabilization is created equally. The A7 III stabilization is fine if you're gonna be doing steady hand holding and maybe some slow motion pans, but that's really it. The huge sensor and small body kind of make it difficult to add serious stabilization where the sensor's gotta move around. There's just not as much room for that. The GH5 on the other hand has the opposite setup. It's got a smaller sensor and a large body, so it has plenty of space for serious stabilization. The stabilization in the GH5 is so good that I no longer use it with a tripod when I'm filming B-roll. Legitimately amazing. I just take it, I film, I'm done. It is, there's gonna be a lot of gushing in this video. Okay, now that we've talked about the easy stuff everybody knows about, let's talk about some divisive features. Now, these next two things might be the deal breaker between the two cameras depending on what you need in a camera. The rear screens on both are very different philosophies. The GH5 has a fully articulating touchscreen that you can both control the camera settings from and, you know, see yourself when you're in front of it. It's kind of a big deal when you are a solo content creator that spends almost all of their time in front of the camera. I wonder who does that. The A7III on the other hand has a quasi-articulating screen that allows for a little bit of flexibility, but it's pretty limited. If you're gonna be in front of the camera, you're gonna have to spend a lot of time getting up, going around, and reframing yourself and coming back and sitting down, or you need to get a monitor. I use a monitor. The Sony camera screen is also a touchscreen, but that functionality is pretty limited to only changing focus, and there's nothing in regards to the actual operation of the camera that you can do on the touchscreen. And again, personal preference. The big daddy of the differences. And this is such a big deal, this might be the deal breaker on the GH5 for you. The autofocus. Dun, dun, dun. The A7III has really good phase detection autofocus. That means what you tell the camera to be in focus will be in focus. There is very, very little, if any, hunting. It's just so reliable, easy system to trust. All of the talking head parts of my video are done with the A7III because I really trust that autofocus. The GH5 on the other hand, well, it does its best. It has a contrast-based system that even after all the updates isn't really great. It's better than it used to be, but I still refuse to use it. It will lock onto your subjects, but you'll end up with it trying to decide what needs to be in focus, and you'll see some hunting in the background. So that's probably the big deal breaker when it comes to the GH5. Okay, so after all of that, so what, right? What do I think is the best camera? Total cop-out alert, I think they're both amazing. Each does something so unique and so well, it's really hard to compare them against each other. The GH5 has pro-level features at the lowest price you'll be able to find anywhere. Seriously, 10-bit 422 video in camera? Nothing else does that. 180 frames per second slow motion in camera? Nothing else does that. The stabilization, the screen, the full HDMI port, almost nothing even comes close to this thing. Almost. You'd think with all those features, any other camera would be doomed, and darn it, almost every other camera is doomed when compared to the GH5. But the image out of the A7III is just darn good. It's so good right out of the camera, and all those pro features don't matter much if you aren't in focus. The full frame sensor means this thing destroys low light situations, and the battery life is on the far end of forever. It's such a dependable workhorse of a camera, it still amazes me every time I turn it on. So which do I recommend? I recommend both of them. Seriously, if you are in front of the camera, the A7III is awesome, and if you can be behind the camera, the GH5 is awesome. They're both so good. And okay. Seriously, it boils down to, do you need good autofocus and a full frame sensor, or do you need fantastic pro level features and you're okay putting a little more work in focusing? Either is great. I love them both. If I'm doing something in front of the camera, I use the A7III. If I can be behind the camera, the GH5. They're both so darn good. Thanks for watching.